First, I have to say I'm a little disappointed in Zoom. The first thing I did when I went on was I looked at the toolbar and it had a little button there. It said enhance your image. I clicked on it and it did absolutely no good.
It didn't.
I don't know. You look very shiny to me, so maybe it added a little lust to you.
John, you look 35 years old. What are you talking about?
Oh my God. Pollock is on Mackinac Island now too. What is this? A conspiracy?
Hi, Brian.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Yeah, first for everybody, I'm going to follow the usual protocol where I go around everybody. So hopefully, we can keep the kind of crosstalk down to a minimum because that's always more difficult with the more people you have on Zoom. So I will be talking to everybody individually. And if you have something that you would like to add or jump in on, please raise your hand so that I can see it. And then I'll call on you and we'll go from there. We'll just try to keep a little order on this if it's all right with everybody. Also, so you know that when we get into the discussion on the pre-application conference, everybody got all these blueprints. All these blueprints, Brian and I talked about this, and on a small screen like this, you really can't see much, but we do have colored renderings, and Brian in his presentation is going to have those, so hopefully we won't be straining to see small details on blueprints at this point, since this is a pre-application. So
yeah, we can always send them over after as well to everybody's email if you guys want them.
Okay, everybody got them.
Oh, okay, sorry.
So we're all right there. Okay, if there are no questions on Zoom,
more kids will be learning virtually.
And as we start the meeting, the first thing I want to do is introduce Sue Koukakis. She's brand new to the commission. Sue, would you introduce yourself, please, and tell us a little bit about your background?
It's Angela.
Angela, I'm sorry. What am I saying? Angela.
That's all right. Yeah, Angela Koukakis. Hi, everybody. I think I've met everybody up to this point. So happy to be here tonight. I was the DDA director up until March, and I left to take a new role with Ford Mobility, and 2 weeks later ended up working in my home. So I do this Zoom stuff all day long now. So no, I'm happy to be part of the Planning Commission and looking forward to serving a different kind of role within the community within Grosse Ile. So nice to
Angela,
be.
thank you. We're glad you're here. Thank you. Thank you for volunteering. Okay, folks, with no disrespect at all in mind, we're not going to stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance. That's ineffective in the Zoom meeting. I think everybody knows that we're loyal to our country, so we're going to move past that. As far as additions or deletions to the agenda, does anybody have any changes? If not, the agenda is approved by consensus. Lori, please note that.
I sure will.
We have two sets of minutes, January 21st and March 2nd. It's been a long time since we've met, and so these are really quite old. We'll take January 21st first. Did anybody have any comments on those minutes? Hearing none, Lori, these are approved by consensus.
Thank you.
March 2nd. Any comments on those minutes? Hearing none, Lori, approved by consensus.
Thank you.
Comment. Brian, is there anybody on the public?
To be honest, I'm not sure who's in the public and who's in your commission.
Ah. Okay. Well, then I think at this point we'll assume that there is nobody on from the public, and we will move on to the pre-application conference. This is Pirates Cove Indoor-Outdoor Storage Facility. The applicant is Vanston and O'Brien Incorporated. This is an engineering firm. Jackson Road in Ann Arbor. Mr. David Hughes is the engineer, and he has prepared the project on behalf of Brandon Vargo, who is the owner. And both of those gentlemen are currently at Township Hall there, and we'll hear from them shortly. The location for this is the Airport Commerce Park. The proposal is based first upon the Island Stowaway business, which was sold. The business itself was sold and purchased by Mr. Bargo. The new owner is now proposing to expand the facility from where it is currently, which is in about the center of the site, expand it all the way south down to Grow Road. And in that area, there will be both indoor and outdoor storage, as well as buildings that some of which will be climate controlled and some of which will not be. This application was worked in detail by the Airport Commission and is really very well advanced. It's a very developed application. The Airport Commission, I think, did a very good job of representing the community values in this project, and I think you all will see that. Beyond that, the officers met with the applicants and Brian Borden. I don't know, I guess it was about a month ago now. And we'd had a concept review on the meeting to make sure all the T's were crossed and the I's were dotted prior to this pre-application. And so there has been some repeated exposure here to the community already. As far as the process and ordinances are concerned, the Airport and Light Industrial District is Article 9 of our zoning ordinance, and the standards in that are what apply to this project. In that article, storage facilities are a permitted use. You know, that's exactly what that area is designed to have, light industry and storage. However, in this case, because the proposed change in size is so significant, it falls into a separate category of requiring a special land use. So in addition to Article 9, the Planning Commission will be processing this under Article 22, the special land use standards, and then finally Article 21, which is the site plan. Now, the process that the Planning Commission goes through on this is lays out as multi-step. First, pre-app, which is tonight. That is, the pre-application is an opportunity for everybody to kind of get grounded on what the project is all about and make some initial comments. And then we would come back again for special land use public hearing and decision at the Planning Commission, site plan review and decision, and then finally board approval, which is mandatory for any special land use. Now, again, because this project is so far along, the officers and I at the concept review felt very, very comfortable that we would be able to expedite this process for the applicant and lump the special land use public hearing, and special land use decision, as well as the site plan decision into one meeting. That, of course, is subject to the what we hear tonight from all of the commissioners on this project. But I think that collectively, we can make this process straightforward for the applicant. Again, the purpose tonight is not to make a decision. We're simply going to talk about it at a high level, which is why I'm pointing out that we're not likely to spend much time working on blueprints. It's just an introduction to the overall vision of that particular project. So on that note, I'm going to stop the introduction. I'm going to ask Brian to lead us through his presentation on this, and then we'll go to the applicants. Brian, it's all yours.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and thank you everyone for taking the time to be on, and thanks to Brandon and Dave for getting us all of the materials in plan and concept form. So I'm going to try to share my screen real quickly. If Mr. Friel can get me there, then I think I am there. So hopefully everybody can see this. So there should be an aerial up on the screen, grows at the bottom of the screen, and then you've got the existing storage facility towards the northwest. And the petitioner is looking to expand to the south and to the east, essentially. So along Midway and all the way down to Grow. So basically this large area in here. So that's an aerial look. I do have several conceptual renderings. So this is what John was referring to earlier. I've got the actual plan drawings as well, and I can put those up at any point if we want to take a look at those. But I thought this painted kind of a little bit better picture on this platform. So what you're seeing is rotated such that north is to the left. You can see Grow Road is identified at the bottom or at the right-hand side of the screen. So that's essentially the primary frontage for the property. And you can see the expansion, as I just noted on the aerial, to the south and the east, including both indoor and outdoor storage. Essentially, the street frontages are lined with buildings that will have a front-facing facade, with the storage being on the internal side of the buildings, and then the outdoor storage being on the inside portion of the property, again, kind of centralized so that the buildings provide a nice amount of screening. So this is an overview of the full plan. I do have a few more of these renderings, and after I finish too, I can put any of these up for Brandon and Dave as well, and I'll let them speak maybe a little bit more to some of the details. So this is a look along the boulevard entrance into Airport Commerce Park. So this is looking straight west from there. And that's that. Similar perspective here. I thought I had, bear with me, I have about 72 windows open right now. So here's another look at that. I thought I had a front facing view. Here we go. So here's a look sort of from Grow. You can see the new building fronting Grow. They've incorporated sort of a lighthouse decorative feature, and then sort of the new entryway in between buildings on the right side of the screen here. It will be gated, so it will be a secure facility. And I believe they're cutting the access points down such that all of the vehicles will enter and exit through this one gated portion of the property. Let's see if I have another look. There's just kind of another look. Again, you get the Grow frontage here, sort of along the left side, and then the main entrance into Commerce Park here with the Boulevard Drive on the right side of the screen. So you can get a feel for the nature of the buildings, the scope of the project. And again, the idea being that between the streetscaping in terms of landscaping and decorative fencing, plus the buildings at the perimeter of the property, the idea would be that the internal outdoor storage areas will be better screened from off-site views, such that anybody driving by isn't just looking at boats and RVs stored out in the middle of an empty lot. So I think it actually will dress the site up quite a bit. And I do think that they've put a lot of thought into this project. As John had mentioned, they've been working with Airport Commerce Park, and I think Mike Duker's on the line. Don't necessarily need him to speak or comment at this time, but Mike has been working with Brandon, and I believe his commission has been working with Brandon for quite some time on this. I originally met Brandon with Sohail from CE Rains back in maybe May or June this summer, where we had a really productive session just going over the ordinance process, going over some of the requirements, and sort of leading into this point where we are now. We got the plan submittals. We met with the officers of the commission, and that put us where we are here tonight. Again, which is sort of an introductory opportunity for the commissioners to see the project, to hear from the applicant about the project, and of course to ask any questions that you may have, be it of them about the project or be it of myself about the ordinance and or the review process that we're about to enter. So I think John summarized nicely what that process actually is. So unless there are any questions of me at this time, John, I think I'd like to turn it over to Brandon and Dave Hughes, and they can walk the commission through the project. I'm certainly happy to keep any of these screenshots up that you guys would like. Just let me know, and I can change these or I can switch over to the site plan views. I just thought this one showed a little bit better, as I mentioned earlier.
Thank you, Brian. Brandon, are you or Dave, which of you are going to speak? And you have the floor.
That'd be me speaking, Brandon.
Are we muted?
No, we're good. Nice to meet everybody.
Welcome.
So this picture is good, Brian, thanks. I figure anybody have questions first before I go into my spiel?
Brandon, just proceed with your presentation. We'll get the
Okay.
questions. I'll lead it through the questions.
Okay, sounds good. So I just wanted to speak a little bit on what we do, who we are. So, you know, we've been in the storage facility business here for, you know, upwards of 10 years myself in Michigan, you know, starting some from scratch, buying facilities that, you know, were kind of run down that the people wanted to get out of, retire, and refreshing them, making them, you know, look a lot better. And that's kind of what it would be happening here, where this facility is nowhere near run down as some of the other ones we've dealt with in the past. However, it could easily use a refresher. It could use a focal point, something that, you know, draws the eye, something that pops. And that, you know, that's the whole premise of trying to move it to Grow Road is we want an area that people drive by, that they look at our facility and just think, wow, you know, they don't think it's a storage facility. They think that, you know, it just looks nice. It looks beautiful. It's aesthetically pleasing. You know, we try to do the landscaping up as best as possible to make that tie in with the buildings. If Brian, if you could bring up some of the photos of the side where it has the decal on it. Doesn't matter which one specifically. You know, we have these limestone inserts that, you know, we can put anything into to incorporate Grow Zeal, incorporate obviously us being Pirates Cove, or incorporate, you know, the Navy. Like we're incorporating anything that makes sense for the area. And that's what we want to do. We want people to realize that we're here to be a part of the community. You know, we don't want to be an outsider. We want to go in full force. You know, I've met with everybody for a reason. I've been the person talking for a reason, and it's because I want you guys to know me as much as I want to know you. You know, I want this to be a project that everybody backs, and I want it to be something that, you know, you never regret. And also you look at 20, 30 years down the road and it's still standing, still looking immaculate.
Okay, if I could also add a few things here.
This is Dave, by the way, our chief builder.
Yeah, my name is Dave Hughes. My company's Vanston O'Brien, and we're responsible for all of the site planning and engineering and actual construction of the facility here. So our engineer's in the audience. His name is Greg. He wasn't with us here tonight, but he is available to answer any questions. But I really just want to say that Brandon and myself worked for a gentleman by the name of Hugo Nord from Vancouver, British Columbia. Hugh has got a dozen of these facilities in Michigan, and I've built every one of them for him. So he's a very good customer of mine for many years, and he has directed us to make a Class A project on Grow Seal, and he wants to make this his flagship. And we have put forth our best effort here in getting a project that Grow Seal will be very proud of. That's all I want to say. We're here to answer any questions. And Brian, you did a great job in the summary. So thank you.
Brandon, Dave, thank you very much. We're going to go now to the commission, and I'm going to run through all the members to pick up questions and comments accordingly. I'm going to start with the officers. Jay and Jim, as I said, were both in the concept review meeting with me, so they have some familiarity with this. And so I want to start, Jay, with you, please.
Yeah, thanks, John, and thank you all for the presentation. This is it's a very interesting project, obviously, and as you know, it's clear that everybody is focused on the same things we are. At least that's what everybody's saying, which is great. And that is, what does this look like for the community? It's in a pretty prominent spot. I mean, it's not, you know, right in our, you know, kind of township center, but it's in an area that a lot of islanders visit from time to time for whatever reason, either township hall or other airport related activities. And so we want this to look good. And, you know, my impression of it is that it's clearly designed to do that. And so I think I look forward to hearing more about it and seeing more. The one thing that would be interesting to me, if it's possible, is you know, actual photographs of existing facilities that might be comparable to.
Yeah, sorry, we have a bunch of them that I can show as well.
Okay. Yeah, and then the other aspect of it is just along Midway. You know, what is that? You know, how is that going to look from the perspective of somebody driving into Midway for other purposes? We have soccer fields there and other activities, recreational activities. So just wondering how that ties into all that. So what is that, the fencing material? How would you describe the fencing material there?
That is a 6-foot aluminum picket fence. It's an architectural fence that it is powder coated and made to last for many years.
And is can you see through it at all, or is it completely?
Yes, you can. It's got vertical balusters. I believe they're 4 inches apart, and they're 3/4 inch square aluminum balusters.
Okay.
And I have some pictures of the fence, I think, in a couple of my photos that I can show as well of the other sites, because we use the same fencing everywhere.
Okay. No, if it's okay with you, Mr. Chairman, that would be interesting to see at some point here this evening. But otherwise, I don't have any other comments or questions.
Okay, I'm assuming that we would see that fence at the next go around at the next meeting.
That'd be fine with me.
Okay, thank you, Jay. Jim, your thoughts, please.
Thank you. And, you know, great presentation tonight. Great presentation when we met a month ago, as the chair had mentioned. Very thorough. I appreciate the drawings. One question I think we had mentioned, and we don't have to get, I don't think today, into the weeds, but it is a question. There is a neighbor to the west of the property, and I do believe we talked about a retention pond between this site and that wooded line, I think that we're pulling up right now. Thank you, Brian. And just, you know, we just want to be very respectful of the dwelling that's already there and the neighbors, and make sure whatever we do there is to code and is safe. And I know we talked about it. I just want to make sure that we continue to think about what we're going to do right there. But as far as the project itself, it's in the right location on Groseal. And I appreciate all the effort you've put in so far. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Mr. Rathel, I think you had a lot to do with this, and I would like you to speak now, if you would, with your questions and comments.
Well, Mike and I have been involved with Brandon, obviously, from the beginning of this project. And I just want to publicly thank Mike Duker and also Brandon. They have worked so hard together, and Brandon has done everything that he's been asked and more. He ran the gauntlet, as you know. The Commerce Park Commission is very protective of its land and how it looks and how it integrates into the community. And Brandon has come through on every occasion to make sure this fits inside the airport, but more importantly, inside Groseal. So I just want to publicly thank Mike and Brandon for doing that. As Brandon knows, and I want to make it public here now at this meeting, Midway is a very important street. Midway is the boulevard there with the median running north and south. Originally in our plans, that was going to be hopefully developed into a kind of Main Street USA feel. And we put some ordinances in place to make sure that happened. I've told Brandon this so many times, he probably doesn't want to hear it again, but I will do everything that I can to make sure that that side of the building, which would be the east side of the property along Midway, fits that historic and sacred road. I mean, it's a very, very important road. So I don't want this east side of the building or the facility to turn Midway into an alley. And as of yet, I haven't seen anything that makes me feel real comfortable regarding that. I know that there's some fences, decorative fences, and in the diagram, there was a couple trees. I don't know what the setbacks would be. And I guess that's part of our mission here of this commission, of where property and where fences could be off of Midway. But other than that, it's just a great, great company. And the individuals working on this, Brandon, you're just a solid dude. I do want to address the retention pond, because that's something that it's a Wayne County permit, but it also goes into federal waters. That's the Frenchman's Creek drainage there going out to the Great Lakes. We haven't nailed that piece down, in my mind anyway. We know kind of where it is. If you look at the very top left of the photo that's up on the patch of mowed green spot going north, is right to the go right to the left now. Go west. There's a right there, that green spot that's on that mowed strip, not the cemetery. That's where the retaining pond is now. The retaining pond that is going to have to put on is probably going to have to be 8 or 10x of that. So it's going to be a rather big retaining pond. Depending on the slope will determine whether or not it needs a fence. So we have potentially fencing issues. Mike Duker and I met out at the property the other day, and I personally am not opposed of kind of incorporating that whole narrow stretch running north and south from Grow Road all the way to the back of their property, incorporating that into their lease somehow to make it work for everybody. But somebody made the point, we have the cemetery there, we have neighbors, we have to be sensitive, obviously, and get the proper permits from Wayne County. And I think because we're on that federal drainage, we have to jump that hoop too. But other than that, thanks guys for this project. And I really think it's going to be a great addition to Grozeal.
Thanks,
Thank
John.
you, John. Mr. Boggs, your comments, please.
Brian, can you bring up the rendering that's on the corner of Grow and Midway? You had it up a minute ago. I just wanted to comment. I do like how you're proposed to do the artwork along the borders of the facility. Having the artwork that's somewhat significant to Grozeal, I think, will be really nice, and it will help break up the long expansive walls we have around this facility. One question I did have is I noticed a lot of, looks like, single doors around the exterior. Was there a plan to have these doors that connect to what is I believe now is a bike path along the front of the building?
Yeah, those doors are all just decorative doors to also break up the monotony of the, the long buildings that we're trying to block the RV lot from. None of them are actually usable. It's just more of a decorative feature.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you, Dan. Mr. Pollock, your comments, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I want to thank the applicant for coming, having this meeting, showing renderings. First thought of thinking of a storage yard doesn't think about doesn't bring to mind something that was submitted here with the schematics. So I appreciate you coming before us and letting us have our opportunities to speak about the project. That being said, less for the applicant, much more for our planning commission. I just want us, to think about what we're trying to do with Groseal. I know that Mr. Rathel talked about Midway being, a sacred road and trying to create more of a, downtown USA. And I'm wondering, when we have, storage facility at that area where we're trying to actually have goals of creating more of a hometown feel, more of a walkability. That doesn't do it for me. So there's nothing to do with the applicant. It's more about questioning our larger view for our master plan and the dynamics between land use and economic development, as well as just quality of life, and making sure that different departments are talking to each other and that we're thinking holistically. And so related to that, as Dan had brought up, the bike path does run along Grow Road. And one of the things that we do have there to begin with is a fountain. And as part of that fountain, we turned it into more of a pocket park. So there's, the residents of Groseal helped fund that actual fountain. And so there's brick pavers over there. There was plans to, turn that more, put more vegetation in there and make it sort of a sense of place. I would like to see if there's somehow that can be incorporated into part of this design. Additionally, I appreciate the walls along the storage facility, but again, it's just a wall. I mean, we're talking about 11 feet here. We have some of those doors that you mentioned that seem much more utilitarian as opposed to creating a quasi place. So I encourage maybe there's a way that we can actually increase the height of those, make it look more like a townhome, where you could actually have, a porch area or, some areas where people could stop and relax. Think of other ways to try and, again, make it more feel like that, downtown USA feel. So with that, I'll turn over my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Eric, your thoughts, please.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I guess first question is how is this incorporating the existing storage lot that's back there?
There's a fence there. I wish I knew what that road was called. So there's a fence on
Yorktown.
Yeah, so Northtown, is that what you said?
Yorktown.
Okay. No, not that one. Saratoga is the road I'm referencing.
Oh.
So there's a fence currently blocking the current facility from Saratoga that will be taking that out, and then just adding the new site to the old site, with blacktop and as well as obviously buildings. So you'll be able to access the whole thing from the front. And we'd be blocking off that gate in the back to make it not be accessible anymore.
You're essentially going to block off Saratoga in the existing site. Just
Correct. And Saratoga will be, at that portion will be coming out as well. So, it will end at Yorktown.
Okay. I guess I just wanted to see how the overall site was done. Clearly, as John had mentioned, there's some more engineering work to be done with the retention pond. That's
Sure.
a big area or a big issue in that area. I did like the way that you basically kicked off by saying that this is going to be a class 1 or a first class project. I appreciate that, especially for this community. Yeah, it would be nice to have something that employs more people, I think the reality is the Airport Commission has been struggling for tenants, and this looks to be a really nice expansion and improvement on the existing storage facility, and hopefully can get the Airport Commission a little more revenue. So I think I don't really have any problems with the overall concept of this. I like the vein in which you're proceeding. Just will be interesting to see how all of the engineering feats get worked out. And then Mr. Chairman had mentioned combining steps through the process, and I've got no opposition to that.
Thank you, Eric. Angela, comments, please.
Hi. So I think, I guess I would have some question or trepidation a little bit about that entryway. I think that the look on Grow looks amazing. I mean, I'm familiar with some of the other sites, just having looked into this project earlier on, because I was aware that they were looking to lease from the Airport Commission and looking to do this project, at the outset. But I think from Grow, I think it'll look great. I think it'll be a nice design. It will bring something more to that frontage there. But to John's point, and this probably isn't a problem with this project, it would be more of a master plan issue with how are we going to go about creating symmetry on the other side of that Midway Road, because if the west side looks amazing and the east side not so much, then what is that going to look like? I do have a question though. The trees that are lining it looks like there's vegetation on the drawing, and down the boulevard, are those trees that the project is going to?
A lot of the landscape plan hasn't been done already, but the ones that line Midway are the ones that are currently existing, if I'm not mistaken.
We're showing new plantings.
Yeah, but we will easily be putting some up there, as well as, it doesn't show any of the smaller vegetation on this plan. So, we would have, shrubbery, bushes, flowers, anything like that around the fronts of the buildings. We could probably actually incorporate benches or things like that we were talking about, where we could have people come and stop, because it is a long pathway. And just being at the current facility, I can tell the amount of people that walk up and down there on a regular basis, or walking their dog, or whatever the case is. So it makes sense to incorporate things like that.
And I think it'll be a nicer pathway to walk when there's more there.
It's not as to look at.
Yeah. Exactly. And I like the artwork. I think that's a really cool ad. The lighthouse, that's unique to Groseal, correct? Because you have, I know at Riverview, and I've looked up some of the other images.
Yeah, we don't have a lighthouse anywhere else. It would be specifically to try to look like the Groseal Lighthouse, and because obviously the Groseal Lighthouse.
And what is that, like the dimensions? Is that just a kind of, an idea, a conceptual drawing that you have there, or is that an actual, do you have the engineering specs?
Yeah, no, it's pretty close to the size that we would want it. The dimension wise, I guess I don't know offhand the specific dimensions.
I believe it's like 16 foot in diameter. It is in an octagonal shape. It's 16 foot, width and length. It's definitely a full-size replica.
Yeah, I think that's a cool ad. I like it. I think it's, I'm impressed. Just knowing, like I said at the outset, I think that the work that you've done so far, I think it's a great ad.
Thanks.
Thank you, Angela. Uta, your comments, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, everybody so far, really excellent input and comments. I have a couple of things about, that John and Angela raised apropos making Midway look more town-ish. I recall that at the gas station rebuild on Macomb and Meridian, some false windows were incorporated on the back wall. And I'm wondering if that's something that might be added to the side walls that are facing Midway, so that it looks more like like a residential building or, something that reflects back that it's not just a wall to make it feel less like an alley, as John said. I'm also wondering, keeping what Brian Pollock said, the possibility of adding a sidewalk along Midway to take, so that people don't have to go on the street at Midway to go further into the airport or to one of the soccer fields, or I know the sled hill is eventually going away, but to make it more walkable in the area. And then I think my first impression of these renderings is that it really does seem to fit into an airport. It makes me think of an airfield. I don't know if you're planning to keep the red roofs and the red pseudo doors, but I think that looks really sharp and in keeping with the way an airfield or the airport area looks. And I was also impressed by your limestone bas reliefs for those panels, and if you could continue that maybe up toward Midway, just again to create that sense of place for the people walking by, so that it doesn't have that alley feel. And then my final question is, and I don't know if it's appropriate to this site plan review, but in the past, as you know, people come up with development ideas based on different kinds of data. Are you assured that you can fill this space? You're increasing the capacity for quote unquote self-storage considerably. Do you have a solid basis for thinking you can fill this?
Yeah, to talk about your first point, when I spoke with John months ago, I would say about Midway, he had discussed changing maybe the elevations of the roof line, anything to make it not just seem like a back alley. And to this point, I just haven't found something that I felt popped enough to put into any of these renderings. But I know that there's going to be something. There's something that will be different with there that I will show you guys at a later date that really makes it seem like it's not just a regular old building. We have other instances at other facilities where clearly we change the roof line, where we add a gable, or obviously have the cupola there, different things that make it stand out. And it'll be easier taking your guys' input to make it stand out even more than just those. And then with the capacity, I know it seems large, but actually it's not that much larger than the current facility that we have there. And based off of the amount of people on the island and the amount of traffic that we've already had phone call wise or just foot traffic to our current facility, it just within the last 4 or 5 months of us owning it, we easily would be able to fill it. There's no doubt in my mind. And the other good thing about storage, and whether I'm supposed to say this or not, we're starting off with a couple buildings, and then hopefully, filling those within, the first year or two, and that's, the general amount that it would take to fill those, and then starting with the other ones after that, in a hopes that we can fill all those, and then would have the other ones. But the main thought, even if we don't fill all those front ones up and we, get 50% capacity, we're still going to be making profit. It's not going to be a scenario where we're losing out on any of it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Uta. Several comments I have. I'm glad you mentioned the phase project, because that was one point that we discussed at the concept review. The obvious concern is that a project starts and you do the first phase one, and then for whatever reason, good, bad, or otherwise, phase two never happens. So that the benefits that you have of having buildings running along Midway, kind of dissipates if the phase two doesn't occur. And we talked about how that would be managed. And I would hope that when you come back at the next go around, that we have a clear path forward for that.
Okay.
Second thing, we talked about the retention pond in the concept review, and again tonight, that's an important engineering question that needs to be resolved. And obviously, when you come back the next time, we'll need to have some good information on that. We also discussed the artwork and the doors in the front, and there were suggestions made to make it more of a navy feel as opposed to a Model T or whatever.
Yes.
With fighter planes from World War II type artwork or whatever, something again that matches with the location of the site. So that was also discussed, and also as Uta pointed out, windows versus stake doors. And I would encourage you to go down, drive down Macomb Street in the center of the city there, and have a look at the post office, which had a long frontage to it when it was a township hall that didn't, and the post office basically closed it all off, didn't want windows. And if you look at it now, you would never know that what's there is not windows. And from my personal preference, as I expressed in the meeting, having windows along Row Road, which are fake, is far more appealing than doors. As I recall, you were going to consider that. So
yep.
Please keep that in mind as well. You also mentioned in the meeting that you are actually taking over a building on the east side of Midway.
Yeah.
An existing building. We didn't really talk about that. Could you explore that a little bit for us, please?
Yeah. So the building on the back section of Midway, we actually own the front. It's not really half, but the front third of that building, and it has 30 indoor storage units on it. So where it says Monkey Business Custom Body and Paint, we have the front portion of that. So none of that back stuff.
By front, you mean the front that faces Midway?
The front that faces Grow Road.
The front that faces Grow Road.
Yep.
Okay. And as I recall, you had no specific plans to do anything with that beyond simply occupied. Is that correct?
Correct. It's actually newer than the other facility, and they just remodeled an existing warehouse to make it be 30 indoor storage units.
Okay. Well, I would encourage you, as part of your overall landscape plan, for example, to make sure that again, that area is consistent with the good appearance that the landscape work on the other side of Midway is going to have. Again, consistent with what others have said on the commission. So roll that in, please, into your landscaping.
Okay, I can do so. It is pretty barren there. We should while we're at it, ask Monkey Business to do some with their landscaping too.
Well, that's something for that's something that Mr. Ratho, I'm sure, could.
Yeah, I know he brought it up.
More than accommodate.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
So I just want to clarify, they do not have the entire length of the south side of that building. So they have probably 1/3 of that building.
It goes, John, it goes to that, there's actually a center walkway.
Sidewalk.
Yeah, it goes to that. So
okay, so say half of that building. So okay, yeah, there you go. So they would have the south side of this building, a blue door heading west. However, there are 3 other tenants in that building. There's Monkey Business and another tenant that is on the east side on Ranger. And then where that white car is, you see an entrance door going in there. That's Bogart. So they kind of wrap themselves in there. So within that facility, we have and have for a long time 4 different tenants.
As well, we technically only are leasing the building. We have nothing to do with the property. That doesn't mean that I'm sure the airport wouldn't mind us putting a little bit of foliage out there. But from my understanding, we only, with that specific part, only lease that building, but don't have anything to do with that land.
That's correct.
Understood. Well, consider the options and perhaps work with the Airport Commission and do what is consistent with the scope of what it is you're doing in that building. That's all.
Of course.
Okay. Mr. Ratho mentioned to me a concern with a sidewalk requirement, specifically along Midway, that the way the ordinances are written, that there would be a sidewalk which would run along Midway all the way back the link to the Saratoga Avenue. And it is an ordinance requirement. And I'm wondering, I had a couple of thoughts on that. I know John pointed out to me it's kind of like a sidewalk to nowhere, but by the same token, we hear tonight that there are other activities that go on deep into the site that people walking on or riding on the bike path there along Grove Road, might take a turn and go back in there. And further, even farther back, there might be an opportunity, because I know around the soccer fields, on the east side of the soccer fields, there's a very nice asphalt. It's actually a bike path. It looks like a bike path, straight, but it's and it actually runs around through the woods and comes out over by the grade school. And that would be kind of a neat thing for us, if we're thinking long term, to be able to connect to, to give a nice extension of possibilities for community, like Brian was talking about. Just thoughts. The only part of it that would be relevant to your specific project would be the sidewalk or bike path, whatever you want to call it, that would run along Midway. But that's potentially a discussion point that maybe you could have with again with the Airport Commission prior to your submittal back to us.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I think it's a lovely coincidence that Mr. Pollock, who happens to be the chairman of the Pedestrian and Bicycle Committee for Grosse Ile, is also on our Planning Commission, that is something that maybe his input and the input of his commission can help us plan out more too, because that is a bike path that leads from Meridian Elementary School back into the soccer football area back here. And that would, I don't know what kind of money we have left in the bike path building fund, but we might be able to find some joint projects in there.
Excellent. Brian, is that something that you could explore?
We certainly can explore it. I should, put a big asterisk in the area, just because, again, we do not have any capital funds at the time. So all the funds that we have are for maintenance. We're looking at opportunities to, stretch our dollar further through different funding sources and collaborations. But I'm thinking, again, sometimes it doesn't have to be a direct bike path. Maybe there's ways of doing things with the roadways where you're able to keep it calm. And again, if you have sidewalks, those could work as well. So it's like, related to that. And, I was wondering, again, about the sidewalk on Midway, but some of those other internal streets too, as far as those connections, especially as it relates to Island Fest. And so, I know that, this property will be developed, and as such, there will be no parking near the airport for Island Fest. And while that's, a one-time deal, I didn't know if the airport had any plans for where those people would be, or like think about the circulation. And again, those sidewalks along the outside of this facility could definitely help out in that capacity, and then be used year round as people are trying to go from the soccer fields, to the township hall, or to other places internal to the site.
Yeah, it's basically what you're describing is what is our master plan vision. We have to decide what that is, and then make sure we incorporate the pieces for it. And whatever pieces might be consistent with this project, we would want to not miss the opportunity to include. Otherwise, again, we would be potentially being short-sighted.
Correct. Yeah. So sidewalks are a lot of part of that. The only other thing I might add, and I apologize for interrupting my fellow colleagues here. I just want to mention that the Grow Road bike path, it's a little bit older now, and so we've been doing some maintenance on it. But I am fearful that as part of the development of this project, that there'll be some crush loads on it, and if there is the possibility of collaborations or redoing that bike path as part of the project, that would be a great benefit to the community.
Well, let's talk about damage. Brandon, are you familiar with the bike path in front of the area?
Yep.
And the concern is that just the construction activity alone would do damage. If there was damage, would I assume that you guys would be responsible for it?
Correct. It's technically on part of our leased land.
Gotcha. Okay. At the next go around, we talked about having samples of the limestone and the colored siding or whatever, so that we actually see it as it actually will be, rather than the artist's conception. Will you make sure that that's included as well?
Yeah, we have. You mean physical samples or photograph samples?
No, real.
I don't know if you're going to carry it, but
hey, we want to put it in our hands and hold it and look at it. And,
we'll have a sample board for all building materials the next
yes,
go
sir.
around.
You got it exactly right, including the fence.
Mr. Chair,
we can do this in person, but I've got my doubts.
Well,
we can.
I don't know. I'm hopeful. I'm trying to go optimistic with the idea that somewhere there'll be a bit of normalcy that will happen, and I'm planning on that. If it doesn't happen, then we'll do the best we can with what we've got.
And Mr. Chair, we can always put physical samples up in Township Hall for planning commissioners to stop by individually before the next meeting to take a look.
That's a great thought too, Uda. Good thought.
Mr. Chair.
Will do.
Yes.
I want to address the sidewalk issue so that, and I understand Brian, he has this commission that he thinks about this stuff. I think it's a little bit of a stretch though, when you look at the requirements or need for a sidewalk there for this type of development. And I have lived in this area here almost every day for the last 25 years, looking at how we're going to develop certain areas of this airport. And as the Commerce Park Commission, we have our own master plan, and we actually develop it, and we utilize it, and we take steps to move that forward. It comes a point in time when you look at a development and you can say, well, we want this, 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 and this, and we can put together an entire wish list of everything that we would like and try to kind of add pork to a project. When I talk about Midway and I talk about the way that facility looks on that side, there's only one way that's going to make it look aesthetically pleasing, and that is through landscaping and a little bit architectural design that the guys have already said that they're willing to do. But when you start looking at putting a sidewalk and a piece of sidewalk along the land lease that we're putting together with these guys, it's cost and it's money that, quite honestly, the entire Commerce Park Commission would feel a lot better if that money was spent for landscaping that area or some of the other things and there's been some great comments with benches and things like that along Grow. So I understand why we put the sidewalk ordinance in there, because back 20 years ago, we had a master plan and you got to remember, Midway wasn't even paved back then. Those streets weren't as nice as they are now. But I think we can still accomplish our goals. We have one retail shop there now. And then on the on the south side of Liberty along Grove or along Midway there. We have the ability to do some things and then also do some things along Grove Road there as well. So when we look at the overall master plan revision based upon the expansion of this storage facility, a sidewalk really doesn't do anything. The flow of pedestrian traffic doesn't really use a sidewalk. You look at Midway, it's not very well traveled with vehicular traffic. There's people that walk up and down all over the airport. I think people don't realize how many pedestrians and our residents go there and walk the entire facility. So I don't want to get too hung up on sidewalks and have these guys run and now try to figure out their budget of how much is a sidewalk, what are we going to do, are we just going to put it there, and then realize that it's going to take away from something else. So that's my personal thoughts on a sidewalk, but also I'll speak with confidence that it is also the consensus of the Commerce Park Commission that we're willing to forego any kind of past thoughts of sidewalks there for Brandon and his company to actually beef up landscaping in areas that we want.
Understood. I think that, John, with you working back through the Commerce Park Commission, in the end, the commission there has to be comfortable with what's coming forward. And if that's the recommendation you make, consistent with your own internal master plan, then that's what you should definitely propose with the applicant.
Well, I got to say something though here, John, and this is why, Grozio works so well, because we have these commissions and committees that actually run this township. There's comments that commissioners have made on this commission that are addition to comments and concerns and thoughts that commissioners had on the Commerce Park Commission. So I am really excited that this came here in this format and that there's a collaborative effort to work this project through to the benefit of the island. So there are really good things that I'm actually going to have conversations with the Commerce Park Commission of comments that commissioners on this commission made.
Well, John, it's an example that we're all working to the same goal.
That's right. That's right, John.
So that's,
Mr. Chair, may I speak?
Yes, please.
John, yeah, I appreciate you bringing up about the Airport Commerce Park master plan. That might be something that, I'd be interested to learn more about. So that way, again, that we coordinate on things, seeing how that, affects, the larger master plan and the zoning ordinance and such. But, additionally, I just want to make mention that, showing, portraying sidewalks as pork is kind of, a misnomer at the very least. I think it does a disservice to people in our community. There's, hundreds upon hundreds of communities that thought this way in the past. And what are they doing now? They're going back and they're spending their own dollars to try and fill in the sidewalk gaps. So yeah, while there might be parts, like there's not a lot of sidewalk activity specifically from a storage facility, you think about what happens to the north of the property or what happens to the south and about that circulation. And, generally these things don't cost that much. So it's like, I understand, I want to be sensitive to, the developers and, looking at, we don't want to sacrifice one thing over another. Right. But again, there's things that, people want to do for the public good. And so I
agree.
Appreciate you, not trying to portray sidewalks as pork.
Well, certainly, Brian, don't misconstrue what I'm saying. Sidewalks in general are good, and there's a place for them, and these things are studied. And the times that we have had developments in certain neighborhoods and we required them, those were good. I was only specifically looking and mentioning this particular project and the overall cost. You got to remember too, Brian, I'm very familiar with not only the lease that they have signed with us, the purchase price of their business from Island Stowaway. their financials are pro forma and their budget's the cost to build this project. So I guess I apologize. I'm speaking probably from a position that I know pretty much this project up and down financially, and but certainly don't think that I think that sidewalks in general are pork. I do not. So I apologize for creating that thought in your mind.
Okay, it's all good, guys. I think that completes my comments. I will ask one more time, does anybody have any further comments? Dan? Mr. Boggs?
Mr. Chair?
Oh, no, I don't have any more comments this time.
Mr. Davis? Jim?
He's shaking his head.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Mr. Frucci?
No, none for me.
John? Rethel?
Nope.
Mr. Ranka?
Nope, I'm good.
Ryan?
I have none, but I noticed in the chat that Greg does have some pictures that he's ready to share of an existing facility. So I just thought I'd let you know.
Okay, we're going to defer that to the next meeting. Uta?
Nope, I'm all set. Thank you.
Angela?
No, I'm all set. Thanks.
Okay, very good. Brandon and Dave, thank you for your time and your presentation. We appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing you again in the near future. Please coordinate with Brian Borden as you develop the remainder of your materials, and we will schedule an appropriate meeting, timing-wise, consistent with your being fully prepared. So let's proceed in that direction, if you would. And again, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good job, John. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, guys, we're going to go on to the chair's report. I know everybody loves the chair's report. Not. But since March, I've been involved in a number of things as the chair, and I thought that it would be good to have Brian kind of review those things a little bit, so you're all up to speed as to either what's going on in the island that has planning implications or things that the chair I've been involved with. So Brian, if you would please, I'll step us through it. Lloyd's first, please.
Oh, give me the hard one to start. Okay. So I think everybody's familiar with Lloyd's restaurant bar on Macomb Street. Ownership changed hands earlier this year, is my guess. Might have even gone into last year. They have done some site improvements and started some building improvements. They did not obtain the necessary approvals or permits to do those improvements. So township staff, including the community development director, the building official, and the zoning enforcement officer, have been working with them to try to get the necessary documents so that they can get the approvals in place. I do believe they have stopped the work on the site. At least I'm hopeful. I have not had any real conversations about this one in a while, but that was my understanding, was that they were, again, the parties were trying to work together to get the necessary application materials as well as the proper plans in place so that the project could be pursued. And more specifically, they made some improvements to the parking lot. They are looking to expand the building, and they are looking to sort of make some improvements to the outdoor patio area that fronts the sidewalk currently, but they want to make it a little bit more of a permanent situation than the temporary setup that they have had in the past. So I wish I had a little bit more information at this time. All I can tell you is that I know that township staff and the new owners are working together to try to get resolution to the issues that have arisen, and I'm hopeful that they'll do so. It would be great if we had some progress, and I can give you maybe a little bit better update the next time we meet. But that's basically where that one stands, just in case anybody was wondering.
Okay, yeah, I would expect that somewhere down the road we're going to see that. The work is continuing inside the building. The remodeling on the inside not a planning commission concern. The work on the outside is what has been stopped. Pending, as Brian said, submission of suitable materials.
Can I, is it appropriate for me to ask a question at this point?
Please, yes. Ask a question.
Is there any way, given the current COVID situation and the difficulty of restaurants operating, especially in this 3-week pause, is there any way that we can accelerate or do something to work with them at a more rapid pace based on the fact that most restaurants that cannot operate with outside seating right now are suffering greatly? They're doing some takeout, I know, some carry out of the building. They were hopeful to open up by the end of November for interior seating, and obviously that's not going to happen because of state holds, and that could continue. But is there anything that we can do on our end internally to accelerate that? I don't even know if they're in a position to continue the work with the temperature changes and things of that nature, but to allow for some outside seating for folks.
Brian, your comments?
Yeah, I mean, it's up to the community development director, so I can't speak for Derek. There are lots of ways things can be expedited. Where I left off, the last meeting or last conversation I was in on, the delays are all on the applicant side. They've not provided any of the materials that have been requested of them. The building official asked for a number of documents that were never provided. We had asked for even just a basic sketch plan of the building addition and the patio and the new parking lot, and we got pencil drawings on graph paper. So, it's really, any delay has not been caused by the township. That should be made absolutely clear. I know the applicant has made some contacts in the township. I know there's I've been told there are a lot of rumors flying around out there, but the township has gone out of their way to try to get this applicant to submit the necessary documents, application forms, plans, and permit forms, and they simply haven't responded. That's the last I heard of it.
When was that update? I'm just curious.
Oh, probably within the last month for sure.
Okay, let's move on. Dr. Cleed and the used car lot.
So similar location. So former Rosetta Braden site, I think everybody's familiar with it in that terminology. The current owner came in last month, met with myself and the officers of the commission, and we discussed potentially a new use of that property for automobile sales. That it is allowed in the Macomb Street District. It does require special land use approval. We made the owner aware of the process and some of the things that we might be looking for in order to comply with ordinance requirements. And that was last month, and we've not heard anything new from that particular property owner. So I don't know if that is something they're going to actually pursue. If they do, it will have to come before the commission, and obviously we keep you apprised in the interim if we do have any movement on that, but it would follow a similar process to what we just did with Pirates Cove for a pre-app and then formal public hearing and review of the special land use and site plan.
Thank you, Brian. The food truck ordinance requested by the township board.
So township administration and I, at the request of a few different departments, including some members of the board, we have met a couple of times. John sat in on those meetings as well, and we did prepare a draft of mobile food vending ordinance, aka food trucks, and we've met a couple times. We fine-tuned a draft that I believe had been at least sent out for discussion purposes or some input to a couple of other bodies, or at least representatives of those bodies. I know that Mike Duker looked at it, and I know that and I apologize because her name escapes me, the new DDA director, Trish, I take that back, Trish looked at it as well. And I know I saw some further input as of last week, but I haven't heard anything since then. But that is something that the township is working on. It is not a zoning ordinance amendment, so it is not something that formally has to come before the commission. It really is just a function of the township board, but township administration is definitely trying to get more input from some of those other affected bodies, such as Airport Commerce Park and the DDA in particular.
Thank you, Brian.
Oh,
I'd like to.
Mr. Chair?
Angela, is that you?
No, it's Uta.
Uta, please.
Well, I just wanted to add to what Brian said. I was going to save this for my comments at the end of the meeting, but he brought it up. That ordinance recommendation came to the township board at our township board meeting last Monday. And I guess it loosened up a considerable amount of chatter, as people were calling it. And by the time of the meeting, the board agreed that it was probably best to take it off the agenda for last Monday's meeting and to schedule a study session with possibly a board vote after, but a session at which all the concerned parties could be invited either to the same room or the same Zoom so that everybody shared the same information. I think the sample ordinance had been given to the Airport Commerce Park Commission, the DDA. Their comments led some of us to believe that they would like to have more extensive meetings or conversations on the subject. As a board member, I was not sure how many members of the public might want to have input, if there were any applicable parties in the community that wanted to make a statement. So I'm just letting you know that the new board gets sworn in and takes office at the end of this week. And I think one of the subjects that is going to come up is then to schedule that study session, include Brian Borden, include the airport, include the DDA, and include the public to, you know, have input and feedback.
Thank you, Uta.
So, Mr. Chair, I'd like to just make a couple comments here. One, tonight's meeting of the Commerce Park Commission, the commission did pass a resolution of support of exempting the Commerce Park Commission or the Commerce Park land, the airport, from any ordinance that may affect restrictions or regulations of a food truck, basically allowing the Commerce Park to operate its existing food truck that we have there now, and then also in our plan as well to incorporate a small food truck park, which we were hoping to do next summer. Along with that, it did go to the DDA. The chairman, Ron Moran of the DDA, and the new DDA Trish director also had no concerns whatsoever of exempting the airport from this ordinance, that they were more concerned about how food trucks may affect Macomb, but had no concerns whatsoever of having food trucks available to the residents at the airport. My one last comment is that I guess this is also as a resident, this would be a brand new ordinance. We don't currently have an ordinance of food trucks. And I would hope that this next board, before they do anything, they get public input by public hearings, and that an ordinance isn't made specifically because of the recommendation of this body or the Commerce Park Commission or some members of the township board, but the community has a greater voice in an ordinance that's going to affect them directly. So I would encourage that maybe this commission stand in united position with the Commerce Park Commission that this next township board has to get public input on food trucks and how that ordinance would be adopted. And also any adoption of an ordinance, the airport boundaries, which we are owned financial statements. We have our own budgets. We don't take any taxpayer revenue to operate the airport, that we're able to generate revenue through a potential food truck park.
Thank you, John. Uta, I presume, based on your comments, that study session is exactly the intent of what John has described?
Yes, I think so. Either a study session or I guess they were saying they didn't feel a public hearing was necessary, but again, I think it's the spirit of openness that we need to get the public involved, whether we call it a study session or a public hearing. We need to hear from the public, and I will keep you guys informed on any steps that get taken toward that.
Understood. Thank you. Ryan, let's move on. Short-term rentals, Airbnb.
Another fun one. So the township has, I don't know if there's more. I think there are a few people who are doing this on the island, but they've had one problematic property in terms of ordinance violations, and they've been cited a number of times. The township attorney is attempting to get them in front of a judge to hopefully mitigate the issue. But what we were asked to do is create an ordinance of such. Again, this would not be a zoning ordinance, it would be outside of zoning. So it wouldn't be something that would have to go through the commission, but obviously we'll keep you apprised of it. That would basically create a licensing scenario for short-term rentals. That's how the few communities that have addressed this in ordinance form, that's sort of what they've done. Most of the communities I work with, this either hasn't been an issue or they've simply just turned a blind eye to it if it is. So I do applaud the township administration for wanting to sort of try to get after this before the problem, or before it becomes problematic, I guess, aside from one particular property. So that is something that the township attorney is taking the lead on, and I'm doing some supplemental research and trying to help him get that document prepared. So we're hopeful that that is something that we'll get moving. We'll have a draft ready for board review, hopefully in the next month or so, so that maybe we can get that document moved forward as well.
Well, this is not a small item. Basically people coming from off island to have a party. Just you can't imagine the debauchery that's been committed on the neighborhood. It's unbelievable, and it's got to stop. Ryan, let's go on to Smith's Cut.
Sure thing. So this is one that was an interesting concept. I won't take too much time on this. Anyone that's familiar with it. So this is, if you still got my screen up, this is an older site. Used to be a residence with some boat wells. There is a lengthy history to the use of this property, including a couple of consent judgments that allowed them to do some things that maybe the ordinance didn't allow, and some agreements basically between the township and a former owner. We did have a party that was interested in redeveloping the property. And again, in terms of the need for an influx of dollars, it was a very positive discussion because the site is badly in need of some improvements, but the complexity of how to get that done just never quite worked itself out. And the party that was interested in the project simply backed away from it. So we did have a few pre-app meetings. We did it all over Zoom. This was back in the spring. But obviously the commission hasn't met in some time. So wanted to let you know about that. If, for any reason or by chance, the project does come back to life, then that is something that the commission will be heavily involved with, just because of the ordinance implications, whether it be a special land use and a site plan, or potentially even a conditional rezoning and a special use and a site plan. There were a few different angles that would need to be evaluated in terms of what the best process would be. And one of the biggest hurdles really was was the court order that was tied to the property. And the gentleman who wanted to do the project was trying to do some things that were outside of the court order, which is always a tricky thing to pull off. So I think what happened is it just became too complex and either got too convoluted or potentially too costly for them to pursue the project, and they backed away and told us as much too. So if something does come of that, we'll definitely get you informed. It is a site that still could definitely use some improvement by whatever means that is at this juncture. I don't know what that will look like, but it's something, I guess, to keep an eye on for a potential redevelopment site within the township.
Thank you, Brian. And the last thing, the famous grubbing ordinance.
Jeez.
So, yeah, so as everyone, I think everyone that was at least here, I think Angela, you're off the hook for this one, but I think it was actually the last time we met. Was that the last commission meeting with our tree ordinance violation?
Angela, it's all in the January minutes.
Oh,
I'm going to make myself sound like a real nerd, but I read it all, so I'm aware.
Oh my gosh.
I know. I'm stuck at home, so why not?
Better to have read it than had to have sat through that one.
Go watch it.
Yes, that would be the real treat, is to go watch it. So anyway, I think everyone else will at least recall, and then Angela, you read the minutes, so you're up to speed too. So one of the things that did come out of that elongated process was the idea of creating a separate grubbing ordinance, because while grubbing is referenced in the tree and woodland protection ordinance, it maybe doesn't get its just desserts. And I think that based on conversations with the chairman and with the community development director, the township manager, I think that is something that we'll be looking to take on. We actually sort of got ankle deep into it probably just before COVID. And then obviously COVID put a huge delay into everything, as I'm sure you're all aware. And then our ordinance work that's picked up spring, summer really has been tied to the mobile food vehicles and the short-term rentals. So we've made those more of a priority at this particular time. But I think that once we get through those items, be it, end of this calendar year, early next calendar year, then I think we'll look to pick the grubbing matter back up and see what we can come up with, so that people at least have to get some type of formalized approval with necessary plans and whatever that looks like at this point. I think we have a number of good thoughts. We just need to put it all down into paper and then present it for input and ultimately an ordinance that the board would consider.
Thank you, Brian. Okay, that completes the items in the chair's report. Brian and I have discussed the next meeting date. The earliest that we would expect to meet, given the fact that we have to have the updated materials from the applicant that we just discussed tonight, plus the requirements for notification for a special land use public hearing. The earliest that we would meet would be January the 16th. So that is a tentative date, again, based upon the applicant submitting the materials that are requested, and we'll go from there. We will confirm it if, when we get closer. But kind of mark it in your calendar, if you would, as a tentative date, please. And we'll see
the date, John?
In January.
Be the 18th, guys. I'm sorry, the third Monday.
Is the
18th.
Is the township closed for MLK Day?
Oh, excellent point.
What is it?
Yes.
That's Martin Luther King Day.
Yes, we are.
All right. We'll look at some alternative dates.
All right. So it'll be sometime later than that. We'll get back to you when we hear from the applicant. Okay.
I think that's, if I could, John, just real quick. So that's sort of the next step. I mean, that's the biggest thing we have going on at this point is, letting Brandon and his team get their plans and get their formal submittal organized. We'll process it as quickly as we can once it comes in. The timing of everything is critical, just as it relates to public hearing notices. I think as most of you are aware of the process or familiar with what staff has to go through to get that done. But it's a 15-day notice by state law. But the newspaper publication is a few days before that 15 days, and they need it a week in advance of that publication date. So it becomes roughly a 4-week notice that essentially has to be prepared and delivered to the newspaper. So the timing of that is tricky. That's why we do need some lead time. And while it is possible they could have materials ready for a December meeting, that also puts us right in the middle of the holiday season too. And I'm not sure they want to do that. I'm not sure you all want to do that. And if we have to have a public hearing, the notification would require us to get moving on that in about the next week to 10 days. So that's why we had looked at January, just so the commissioners are aware of that was our line of thinking, just so you understand.
Thank you, Brian. Okay, I'm going to go around for final comments and see if anybody has any other thoughts or concerns. Angela?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Uta?
No, thank you. I was
Okay.
muted.
Ryan?
Mr. Chair, I had the pleasure of attending the DDA, or the Downtown Development Authority of Macomb Street's meeting earlier this week, or last week, actually. And so they do have a new plan in order to do economic development along Macomb Street. There is a lot of interesting facts, about that plan. Interestingly enough, one of the things that they mentioned was about becoming more redevelopment ready, which would be an entire township-wide effort in order to make sure that all of our ordinances, all of our building codes, et cetera, are pretty straightforward and developer ready. And so that way developers have a clear idea of what we specifically expect when coming to do business on Grosseal. And so I just think it would be beneficial for the Planning Commission to know more about the Macomb Street effort, and maybe invite Trish or others from the DDA to be a part of a future meeting.
Brian, please make a note of that. Brian Borden, make a note of that. Sorry, 2 Brians. Thank you, Brian. Mr. Ranka?
Nope, nothing else to add. It's good to see you guys. It's been a while.
Yep.
Likewise, Eric.
Mr. Rathel?
No, I'm fine. Thank you.
Mr. Frucci?
Nothing for me. Thank you.
Mr. Davis?
I'm all set, John. Thanks.
Mr. Boggs?
Nothing for me. Thank you.
Guys, thank you for your cooperation tonight. I think this went well. Good job. And we'll get after it again after the first of the year. So at that point, Brian Fryer, we're going to sign off.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Yeah, have a great Thanksgiving, guys. Everyone stay safe out there.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.